Miss Britton, I'm doing a speech over D-Day. So my great-grandpa was born in 1917. He was born on a little farm in the panhandle of Texas to 10 brothers and sisters. And he was the first one to get drafted into World War II. He then went up through Africa and all the way through the first parts of the war, and his tank crew had lost a tank in Africa. And then in June, he got the call to go to England, where they were preparing to do the invasion of Normandy. And then at 6 a.m., he landed on the beach of Normandy with his tank crew. But his tank sunk, and 90% of his tank crew died on the way up. He then found another tank crew and fought from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. when the battle was finally over. 95% of the first invaders of the Normandy beach died there. All of A Company was wiped out. It was the most important battle of World War II. So the actual invasion. In the morning, thousands of paratroopers were dropped behind enemy lines. About 2,000 of them. None of them landed where they were supposed to because of the storm that hit that night that they didn't know about. So there was 2,000 paratroopers landed between 2,000 meters between
not miles,
where they were supposed to be. Most of them never found their platoon again, and most of them never found it again, and some of them died trying to find them. At 6:30 a.m., the invasion began. Over 156,000 troops had stormed the Normandy beaches of Omaha and the other two. Over 98% were killed instantly, so over 2,400 casualties on Omaha Beach alone. That was where the heaviest fighting was, and that's where Germany was the most fortified. But by the end of the day, Allies gained control of the beach. 9,000 Germans were killed, and over 20,000 were taken as POWs. So the importance of D-Day was it was the major turning point of the battle of the war. Now the Allies had a foothold in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, to fight Germany, and Russia was now amping up their defenses because the Germans had to move troops from the Eastern Front over to the Western Front to combat the Americans. So after D-Day, there was about 2 months of moving in and preparation, little skirmishes that would happen. And then Battle of the Bulge commenced, which was the largest offensive of the Americans in the war. And it was the largest defensive of the Americans in the war. It was the largest offensive of the Germany. After which, Germany would take 2 miles of land back from the Allies. And then the Americans would push them back all the way back to Germany. And it was the last time that Germany was on the offensive in the entire war. France and most of the Eastern European countries were liberated during that offensive. Almost exactly 1 year after D-Day, Germany would surrender, marking the end of one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history, and definitely the bloodiest conflict of American history. Of course, the Pacific Theater was still going on. To conclude it all, over 2,400 Americans died on Omaha Beach alone. Over 4,000 troops died in all the offensive for the Americans. It was by far the most important battle for the Americans and for the Allies of all of World War II. So my sources for this was Anthony Beaver, D-Day. D-Day, June 6, 1994, the climactic battle of World War II. And then Omaha Beach, D-Day, June 6, 1944, by Joseph Balsky.